Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tangmen based on novel. So let's start. However, this wonderful feeling only lasted for 3 seconds before it disappeared after Huo Yuhao released his hand. This. Master Tang, how is it possible? Chenin felt as if everything he had known was a lie. He hadn't expected that a soul master could help increase the cultivation of a soul engineer. He quickly inspected his body and sensed the changes in his soul power. As he did, he discovered that the enhancement was real. His soul power didn't stop increasing even after Huo Yuhao's finger stopped contacting his hand. It was real. Chenin was only a soul engineer, and his martial soul wasn't very outstanding. His cultivation was able to reach class 5, because he had consumed all sorts of medicine and used soul tools to forcefully stimulate his progress. He had thought that he would remain in this class for the rest of his life. His cultivation hadn't increased in the last 7 years. But right now, his soul power had finally experienced an increase after years of dormancy. Furthermore, he was also felt that the impurities in his soul power were being cleansed by the introduction of Huo Yuhao's soul power. Although the immense life power only surged in his body for a moment before disappearing, it still generated a lot of benefits for him. The feeling of being filled with energy, rushing blood, and youth was too wonderful. At this point, Chenin was looking at Huo Yuhao with a burning passion in his eyes. Huo Yuhao calmly said, "In this world, no one can understand everything. There are many things that exist even if you don't think they do. Do you understand?" Yes, I understand." Chenin hurriedly nodded. Wang Donga and Nuna furrowed their brow when they saw how submissive he had become. They didn't know what Huo Yuhao had done to him that caused his attitude to change greatly. Huo Yuhao said, "All right, bring us in. Please carry out my orders as soon as possible. When this tournament ends, I'll be going into retreat to study soul tools. It'll be difficult to tell if we'll ever meet again. Don't worry about the money. If you can bring the goods, I'll have the money for you. Of course, you must keep this confidential. Otherwise, don't expect to obtain any benefits from me." "Yes, I'll certainly keep it confidential." Chenin was in an unsteady state right now. To a soul engineer, there was nothing more astonishing and surprising than an increase in his cultivation. This was especially so when the enhancement was extremely pure. Chenin didn't sense any side effects at all. If he could really become a soul emperor, he might be able to become a class 6 soul engineer. While class 5 and class 6 were only one class apart, the treatment of soul engineers from these two classes varied immensely. How could a soul king and soul emperor be treated the same way? There was also a huge increase in one's abilities when one advanced from a soul king to a soul emperor. Furthermore, Chenin also recalled that Huo Yuhao had once mentioned that he might consider letting him become an evil soul master if he performed his tasks well. If that was the case, it wasn't a foregone conclusion for him to become a soul sage. To Chenin, this was a great motivation. He was determined to take the risk and complete the task Huo Yuhao had asked of him. In this world, there were only eternal benefits. The benefits that Huo Yuhao could bring to him made him extremely determined to take that risk. After being in the Duskwater Alliance for so long, he had many contacts he could use. Chenin was very excited as he led Huo Yuhao and the other 3 into the Golden Hall before he left. Numbers 96 and 98 had not arrived at the resting area yet. Huo Yuhao didn't speak much as he arrived. This was the Duskwater Alliance's territory, so there was a possibility of being monitored. It was best to remain silent. Chenin returned after a while. He bent his waist and whispered something into Huo Yuhao's ears. "Every soul engineer will be given 10 hours to create a soul tool today. There aren't any restrictions on the number of soul tools that can be created. The fights will only commence early tomorrow morning. There are fewer restrictions now. Apart from the restriction of using any other soul tools, there aren't any other restrictions." Huo Yuhao thought of something and asked, "This means that I can use soul skills?" Chenin nodded and replied, "Yes. Apart from testing one's soul tools, this is also a test of one's overall abilities. I heard that the grand final between the 3 organizations will be held in a similar style. Everyone is going to compete on a bloody stage. Only one will emerge as the champion out of the 9 competitors in the grand final. Only the first 3 will be rewarded. I heard that the winner will take home a class 9 soul tool. After hearing the words Class 9 Soul Tool, Huo Yuhao was also shocked. It was too great of a reward. What were Class 9 Soul Tools? Strategic weapons. In the Sun Moon Empire, how many Class 9 Soul Tools were sealed inside the military vault? Even Class 9 Soul Engineers were restricted by the materials they possessed and the difficulty of creating Class 9 Soul Tools. Generally speaking, there were very few people who had more than 3 Class 9 Soul Tools. Of course, Jing Hongchen was an exception, since he was backed by the Empire. The destructive power of a Class 9 Soul Tool was even more devastating than a title Doluor in terms of a single attack. With a Class 9 Soul Tool as a reward, the Soul Engineers who competed weren't afraid to risk their lives. You're good. Huo Yuhao acknowledged. Go and get busy. I know what to do. Remember to help me place the bets. Seeing how confident Huo Yuhao was, along with the miraculous scene he experienced earlier, Chen had already made up his mind. He was going to place some of his own money on Huo Yuhao. No one would mind more money. As Chen left, Huo Yuhao revealed a slight grin on his face. The task he had set for Chen wasn't very difficult. Everything Chen felt was real. The immense life power came from the Life Guardian blade. As for the pure soul power, Huo Yuhao had retrieved it from the origin energy of ultimate ice, when he cultivated in the morning. He left a shred of it to strengthen Chen's conviction. It was quite precious. It was also very helpful to Huo Yuhao's own enhancement of his soul power. After this period of cultivation, Huo Yuhao's soul power would increase by leaps and bounds. He was more and more confident that he would be able to walk again soon. The door opened. Number 96 and 98 walked in, still decked out in black. When he saw Huo Yuhao, 98 twisted his mouth and said, "I didn't expect this. You actually managed to reach this stage. You'd better pray that you don't meet either of us." Huo Yuhao smiled and replied, "It's difficult to tell who will win or lose. I bet 10 million gold soul coins on myself. I wonder if you dare to do that." Number 98's expression changed. 10 million. I didn't know you were such a wastrel. You'd better pray that you don't draw me as your competitor. Number 96 dragged him away, simply nodding at Huo Yuhao. The two of them walked to one side and sat down. Huo Yuhao squinted, thinking of the carving blades that the two of them had used, and revealed a smile on his face. Wang Donga thought to herself after seeing his smile, what's he up to again? He must be trying to dupe these two fellows. 96 and 98 came a little late. They only sat down for a short time, before some staff members came to inform them that the tournament was about to begin. They entered the Golden Hall again. 96 and 98 were in the spotlight, while Huo Yuhao naturally caught some attention too, since he was in a wheelchair. He had caused some trouble on his first day of the tournament, but his performance had been average in the succeeding rounds. There wasn't anything very special about him. He wasn't like 96 and 98, who had blazed their way into this round. However, Huo Yuhao was able to edge out his opponents every time, and finally reached the round of 6. If he won this round, he would be qualified to represent the Duskwater Alliance. As there were only 6 people left, the stage in the hall was also much more spacious. There were 3 distinct regions, and the carving table in each region had been enlarged. At the center of the stage were 3 circular tables. Every table was stacked with rare metals. They were the rewards for the victors today. The startling thing was that the jewel region behind it had been dismantled. There was only the circular stage in the center. Huo Yuhao and the rest were brought to a tunnel behind the stage. They didn't enter through the main door of the hall like before. In addition to the 4 of them, there were 2 other young men around 27 or 28 years old waiting there, who appeared quite excited. They were also competitors in the round of 6. According to the information Chen had given Huo Yuhao, they were both Class 5 Soul Engineers. They were the weakest 2 of the 6 remaining competitors. On the stage, a handsome young man wearing a dazzling golden shirt walked up to the stage. Greetings to all distinguished guests. I'm the MC for today's tournament. You can call me a Jin. I'll help everyone interpret today's fights. All the spectators got excited when they heard that the match was about to begin. They started to cheer, and whistling could be heard from time to time. They had placed heavy bets on today's fights, since they could now bet on specific individuals. As for how the 6 of them would be paired up, it was going to be decided using lot. This lot drawing would be very important. First, let me introduce all of you to our top 6 soul engineers. I must reiterate that the information that we released regarding the 6 of them before the start of the match, and the analysis that I'm going to give you now are all based on their performances in the previous rounds. We've never asked them what their class or abilities are. That's because it's taboo to talk about such things. Ajin's voice suddenly sounded very high-pitched. Let's welcome our first competitor, whose number is 37, onto the stage. A young man slightly to the front in the tunnel behind quickly ascended the stage. He took 2 to 3 steps and walked over in front of Ajin, placing both his hands behind his back. He has defeated many strong opponents en route to the last 6. He even created a strong yet rare Class 5 Soul tool in the previous round. We estimate that is a Class 5 Soul engineer, and specializes in creating dexterous, offensive-type Soul tools. Next, let's welcome our number 85 competitor up onto the stage. The other young man also quickly went up to the stage. He stood beside 37. His introduction was similar to 37, it wasn't very special. Those who were sharp could tell that they were the weakest too. They were also given higher odds to win. Third, let's welcome our number 66 Soul engineer up on the stage. I'll need some of my staff members to give him a hand. Huo Yuhao was pushed onto the stage by 2 staff members. The MC came to his side and smiled at him before saying, although it's a little inconvenient for him to move, he managed to triumph in every round of this tournament. We don't know what his limit is, but we estimate him to be a Class 5 Soul engineer. From his calm and composed performances, we can roughly tell that he has a strong, yet mysterious amount of potential. Our fourth competitor today is our number 88 Soul engineer. He has been wearing a mask all this while, and has a huge and burly figure. He too walked up to the stage, and quickly made his way over beside Huo Yuhao. He once demonstrated his strength. We estimate him to be between a Class 5 and Class 6 Soul engineer. In fact, I'd like to know why he's always wearing a mask. Perhaps he's a familiar, reputable Soul engineer in our empire. I rate him highly. He too listened to Huo Yuhao's instructions and didn't mutter a word. After all, he was wearing a mask. His appearance seemed very cold. Our fifth competitor is our number 98 Soul engineer. He is very strong, and even possesses an extremely special, sharp carving blade. We believe it to be a top-ranked carving blade, and estimate him to be a Class 6 Soul engineer. We can confirm that his abilities are Class 6 and above. I don't think any of the first 4 competitors would like to draw him in this round. Our last competitor is our number 96 Soul engineer. Just like our number 98 competitor, we believe him to be a Class 6 Soul engineer. He also possesses a sharp carving blade that we believe to be a top-notch carving blade. We've announced earlier that he and our number 96 Soul engineer won't meet each other in this round since they are the strongest. This is to ensure that we can send our best lineup to the grand final. Let the lot drawing begin. Let's draw the lots. When the MC uttered these 4 words, 98 deliberately glanced at Huo Yuhao in his wheelchair, who was a head shorter than everyone else. His lips moved, and he seemed to be mouthing, "Pray." Huo Yuhao smiled a strange smile. "Yes. Pray, but it's you who has to pray that you won't be matched with me." The lot drawing process was simple. There was a large crystal ball, and 6 tiny balls inside with magnets on them. There were 2 magnets in each of 3 different areas inside the crystal ball, and the tiny balls that were drawn to the magnets in these respective areas, when the crystal ball began to rotate, would face each other today. The balls with 96 and 98 were already attached to 2 different regions, which meant the 2 wouldn't meet each other in this round. The 4 other balls were still at the bottom. Alright, I will commence today's crystal lottery. Spin. The MC pressed a button beneath the crystal, and the crystal ball gradually started to rotate. The 4 balls at the bottom were gradually tossed into the air as the crystal began to spin faster and faster. The 3 grooved areas with magnets attached to them didn't move. The first ball was quickly sucked away to one of the remaining empty regions. Alright, number 88 into the 3rd region. I have to say that you're quite fortunate, Mysterious Soul Engineer 88. You're lucky that you're not up against the 2 of them, who we have estimated as powerful Class 6 Soul engineers. Hikaitu's number was the first to be drawn. 98 glanced at Huo Yuhao once more, as if he was saying, "Your chances of meeting us are a lot higher now." Another tiny ball was sucked into one of the regions with a whistle right at this moment. This time, this ball was sucked into the region with 96 inside. 37 versus 96, inside the first region. 37 was instantly overcome with despair. He knew that he had a chance against Hikaitu, but he had no chance against 96. 96 was confirmed to be a Class 6 soul engineer, and he possessed a ranked carving knife as well. Alright, the fifth one has been retrieved. 66 versus 98, in the second region. Both 98 and Huo Yuhao's eyes immediately became a little peculiar. Their gazes met, and Huo Yuhao saw a sardonic smile, while 98 saw a look of exasperation and helplessness. There was no suspense with the last draw. 85 versus 88, in the third region. Hikaitu was practically given a walkover. Alright, the lottery has been completed. Everyone will be given 15 minutes to place their bets. Only you who are here will be able to take advantage of this treatment. The opportunity will never return if you let it slip. The 15 minutes begins now. May I invite the 3 contesting pairs to move to your respective seats. The next 10 hours will be tiring and exhausting, but the ultimate winner can take the rare metals that have been prepared for you at the center of the competition stage. It's very difficult to evaluate these metals, because they can't be purchased on the market. Every winner will win 54 different kinds of rare metals, 5 kilos of each. The lottery had been completed, and the entire Golden Hall began to hustle and bustle. Everybody had their own guesses and estimations from the lottery, and everyone would undoubtedly have the most confidence making their bets at a time like this. Of course, placing their bets within the allotted 15 minutes also meant that their odds were a lot lower than before. Even so, the entire place still descended into chaos, and all 36 betting booths were packed with people. Hikaitu came over to Huo Yuhao and pushed his wheelchair into the second region, while 98 tagged along. You're finished, little fellow. Your only chance to live is if you admit defeat right now, he continued proudly. This is what it means to say God knows what you did. You're too arrogant, so you ended up having to face me. Ha 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 ha. Huo Yuhao turned around and looked at Hikaitu. He frowned and said, Am I that arrogant? 98. Are you that confident of gobbling me up? 98 grunted coldly and replied, If I can't beat someone like you, HMPH. Huo Yuhao laughed. Why don't we place a bet? This tournament exists for wagering anyway. A suspicious look flashed across the other soul engineer's face. You still dare to wager with me, young man? What are the stakes? Huo Yuhao said, I'll take your carving knife. If you lose, then that carving knife will belong to me, and I won't take your life. See, I'm such a conversationalist, and I'm so amiable and generous. You want my carving knife? 98 wasn't a fool. He could tell from Huo Yuhao's smiling face that he wasn't anxious or worried at all, and he felt alarm bells go off in his head. Has he been hiding his abilities this entire time? What about you? Unless you have your own ranked carving knife, you're not worthy of making this bet with me. Huo Yuhao answered, I don't have a ranked carving knife, but I have a soul tool. What do you think? He reached inside his pocket and took out a soul tool that resembled a chest plate. It was the Hongchen's blessing that Jing Hongchen had given him. Take it and let him feel it, brother. Huo Yuhao passed his Hongchen's blessing to Hikaitu beside him. Hikaitu's took Huo Yuhao's Hongchen's blessing and stepped over to 98. They were all soul engineers, so everyone was relatively discerning about soul tools. Hikaitu revealed the Hongchen's blessings formation arrays to 98 for a single look before he infused his soul power into it and released a thread of the soul tool's aura. He then passed it back to Huo Yuhao. 98's eyes grew slack. That was a miniature formation array. Soul tools weren't necessarily more powerful as they got bigger, and this was especially true with regards to their formation arrays. Smaller soul tools were easier to carry, too. For instance, Hongchen's blessing was only several centimeters thick. How could Huo Yuhao carry it with him everywhere he went if the formation arrays inside were too big? Creating miniature formation arrays was 10 times harder than the same normal-sized formation arrays. Typically, only soul engineers above Class 7 would attempt something like this. 98 had only been given one look at it, but he realized that the soul tool that he had just seen possessed at least 5 miniature formation arrays, and every single one seemed exceedingly complex. This soul tool was definitely not a prototype, and was undoubtedly Class 8, at the very least. It also possessed a dense and intense aura. The miniature formation arrays inside were already incredibly valuable by themselves, because every high-level Soul engineer crafted formation arrays with their own unique methods. Learning something about these unique methods was priceless to mid-level Soul engineers. 98 hadn't expected Huo Yuhao to wager something as precious as this against him. Of course, he was confident that his ranked carving knife's value wasn't inferior to this Soul tool. Greed began to stir in his heart. His eyes closed into slits as he stared at Huo Yuhao, and Huo Yuhao stared back at him. Huo Yuhao's eyes were calm, and there even a tinge of condescension in them. Is this a trick? Has he been hiding his abilities this whole time? He wants to bait me and win my ranked carving knife. 98 was a little arrogant, but he wasn't an idiot. Otherwise, he wouldn't have become the Soul engineer that he was today before the age of 30. He pondered long and hard, and decided that he would reject this wager. Even though his aura would be beaten back, because of this, it was better than actually losing his ranked carving knife that was too precious to him. However, he noticed a fine detail right at this moment. Huo Yuhao was using his right hand to grip the wheelchair's armrest, and it seemed a little strong. Even his fingers' joints were a little greenish-white. Soul engineers all had good eyes. Otherwise, how could they craft intricate and delicate soul tools? A thought flashed through his mind as he stared at Huo Yuhao's right hand, which was still gripping the wheelchair's armrest tightly. Maybe he doesn't have the confidence to defeat me at all, and he simply wants to use this wager to beat back my grandeur. 98 began to scrutinize Huo Yuhao closely when he thought about that possibility. He quickly found another fine detail. Huo Yuhao's other arm seemed to be quivering, the arm that he had never used before. Huo Yuhao's calm eyes were flickering with something, and those eyes seemed to betray a little anxiety and discordance. These details weren't obvious, but 98 managed to pick up on these clues as he observed Yuhao closely. Okay, I'll take the bet. A confident smile surfaced on his face. Huo Yuhao was momentarily stunned. You're really betting with me? I'm lacking a ranked carving knife anyway. Many thanks to you, then. 98 stared back mischievously and said, Do you really have the confidence to defeat me? I don't think so. Since you want to die, little fellow, I will fulfill your wishes today. Huo Yuhao answered coldly, We'll have that bet, then. If you're not afraid, we can make this bet public, and the Duskwater Alliance can be our witness. Otherwise, what if you lose and you deny that this bet exists? 98 was full of avarice, and his mind was already made up. No matter how he looked at Huo Yuhao, he felt as if he was trying to put up a strong front. A cold smile appeared on his face as he said, All right, the Duskwater Alliance will witness our wager. They will see how you lose that soul tool to me. You, come here. He reached out and hollered at the MC on stage not far from where they were. Akin walked over hurriedly. He was just an MC, and he didn't dare to offend the Sun Moon Empire's soul engineers. Soul engineers were the most highly regarded profession in the country. What do you need, sir? Akin sounded a little fawning. 98 grunted coldly and said, I want to wager with my opponent, and we are betting on who will be the eventual winner. I want the Duskwater Alliance to lay witness to this wager. Ah? Okay. Akin's eyes sparkled. He was the Golden Hall's top-rated MC, and he knew all too well what the audience loved to watch. Exciting things were a lot better for the gambling atmosphere, and this was especially true when everyone was still placing their bets. Ajin hurriedly made sure he knew everything there was to know about the situation. He immediately picked up his speaker-type soul tool and announced on stage, Everyone placing your bets, please wait a moment. There's a minor interlude that I have to tell everyone about so that everyone can make better judgments. Just a few moments ago, 98 and 66, who are both mighty soul engineers, have announced their own wager. 98 will use his own carving knife as the stake, and 66 will use a powerful soul tool as his. We will invite the tournament's chief judge to assess these two items, so that we can confirm their value. Of course, the wager has been announced and completed, and both parties cannot take anything back anymore. 98 grabbed the speaker-type soul tool from his hands and said loudly, My stake is a carving knife. It's the same one that will be used later on in the competition. He stuffed the speaker-type soul tool back into Ajin's hands after this sentence. When he turned around at Huo Yuhao, he could see that Huo Yuhao's head was lowered, and there seemed to be sweat dripping down from his temples. Why don't we let it go, brother? Hikaitu whispered into Huo Yuhao's ear. Let it go. No, it's too late. The announcement has already been made. His ears were pretty good, and 98 could clearly tell what they were going on about. At this moment, the three judges that the Duskwater Alliance had sent forth stepped onto the competition stage. The judges had changed once more because this was the round of 6, so the judges that came forward today were all Class 7 Soul Engineers. These three mighty Class 7 Soul Engineers had veils draped over their faces, as it was clear that they had some reputation in the outside world, so they were afraid that people familiar with them would recognize them. The three judges stepped onto the competition stage and quickly arrived before them. 98 directly retrieved his carving knife and handed it over. He wasn't afraid of people pining after his carving knife, as the world seemed to look on. Furthermore, he had quite a background to back himself up. His dark green carving knife was a tad bigger than most carving knives. The blade seemed to have rust marks, but they didn't seem like actual rust. It seemed ancient and unornamented, and there were two dragon-shaped engravings on both sides of the blade. It emanated chilly sensations, and even the naked eye could tell that this carving knife was extraordinary. The middle judge among the three took the carving knife carefully. He was immediately overcome with a look of astonishment. This? Darkness Green Dragon. 98 answered proudly, yes, it's my Darkness Green Dragon. The judge turned around and took a Jin's speaker-type soul tool. He deepened his voice and said, 98 has chosen his Darkness Green Dragon as his stake. This is a ranked carving knife. The Darkness Green Dragon is ranked 59th on the carving knife leaderboard. It carries darkness and wind elements, and any soul tool that it creates will carry these two elements. It's 3 times heavier than typical carving knives, and is well known for its stability. Using this carving knife with suitable soul tools will create formidable effects, and it will have a 10% increase in success rate when forging soul tools above Class 7. Yes, this was a formidable ranked carving knife. Ranked carving knives were almost priceless to soul engineers. The three judges turned towards Huo Yuhao when they finished introducing 98's carving knife. Huo Yuhao was grasping his Hongchen's blessing as tightly as he could with his right hand, and his eyebrows were tightly knit together, but he didn't make a sound at all. 96 came over beside 98, and asked him a few questions inquisitively while he glanced at Huo Yuhao from time to time. 98 whispered some explanations to him with a smile on his face. 96 frowned slightly, and he responded as if he were chiding his friend. What are you betting with? The judge stepped up to Huo Yuhao. Huo Yuhao hesitated for a moment before he over his Hongchen's blessing. My teacher gave this to me. Don't spoil it. The look of reluctance on his face was undeniable as he spoke. The leading judge examined the soul tools formation arrays, as he took Huo Yuhao's Hongchen's blessing. His body trembled as he blurted out, this is the illustrious virtue halls. Shut up. Huo Yuhao interrupted him with an angry shout. The judge seemed to realize something, and he hurriedly closed his mouth as he continued to inspect the soul tool. The other two judges came over, and all three of them inspected it for a long time as their eyes flowed with astonishment and shock. This was a soul tool that Jing Hongchen, the illustrious Virtue Hall's Hallmaster, had created himself. Even though they weren't sure if this was a Class 9 soul tool, they could tell that this was an incredible soul tool from how complex it was and from the materials that were used to craft it. The three judges exchanged looks, but 98 was a little impatient. He walked over and said, "Can you make the announcement? You guys can't be biased. Otherwise, HMPH." The chief judge nodded. He picked up the speaker-type soul tool and said, 66 has chosen a high-level soul tool as his stake. For some special reasons, we cannot describe this item, but we can attest that its value is comparable to the Darkness Green Dragon. Alright, we have finished assessing their stakes, and the Darkness Green Dragon will temporarily be given back to 98 for use in the tournament. This soul tool will be kept with us, and it will be given to the victor after this round. The wager has been established, and the Duskwater Alliance will treat either party that goes back on his word as enemies. We will do our best to make sure that this wager goes through. The three judges kept the Hongchen's blessing after the announcement and returned to their seats. The judges were sitting on 3 elevated chairs 3 meters above the ground, so they could watch everything that was going on with the contestants from their vantage point. A Jin took the speaker-type soul tool back and said loudly, "All right, the interlude is over. I trust that the wager between these two soul engineers has influenced your bets in some way, my dear guests. You have 10 minutes left, hurry up and make your bets. The booths will close once time is up." The gamblers were indeed a lot livelier after this interlude's excitement and stimulation. Huo Yuhao's face seemed to glow with ice-cold light, as he hit himself softly on the left shoulder. An amused smile broke out across his face. He's taken the bait in the end. He Kai-Tu escorted Huo Yuhao to the second region's crafting desk, before he patted him on the shoulder and returned to his own side. 98 walked over to his own crafting desk opposite Huo Yuhao. There was a bright smile on his face as he said, "So, this soul tool is from the illustrious Virtue Hall. It's quite impressive, looks like you're committed quite a bit to this gamble." Huo Yuhao answered coldly, "You still have a chance to regret your words. Otherwise, won't you be devastated if you lose your ranked carving knife to me?" 98 laughed out loud. "I wouldn't be so sure that I'll be the one that will be devastated after this round. You're daydreaming if you want me to retract my wager. Weren't you so arrogant and outrageous before this? Why are you cowering now? Enough bullshit, we'll see who wins this wager with our abilities. Don't worry, even though I have absolute confidence that I will win, I will not underestimate you. I will use the soul tools that I'm most adept and familiar with against you today, and I won't give you a single thread of a chance at all." Huo Yuhao's face changed slightly, but he said nothing more. He closed his eyes and began to conserve his energy and mentally prepare himself. The rare metals and the myriad of refined metals that were to be used in this round were sent up. This round was 10 hours long, so a lot more metals had been prepared for today. Some were placed on the crafting desks, while a rack specially given to each contestant was placed next to each of them for their own convenience. The 15 minutes allotted for betting quickly passed, and the gamblers returned to their seats one after another. After the lots had been drawn, the audience knew that the most attractive and interesting face-off would be between the two soul engineers, who had made their own individual bet. The other two were conspicuously unbalanced, and the odds were pathetically low. The odds for the match between Huo Yuhao and 98 were relatively higher, while Huo Yuhao's odds were the highest. This was because he was against 98, and nobody could see how he had any advantage at all. Without talking about anything else, the judges estimated him as a Class 5 soul engineer, while 98 was a Class 6 soul engineer. 98 also possessed a ranked carving knife, the Darkness Green Dragon. Huo Yuhao's odds were at 1:3, while his opponent's odds were at 5:4. The other two matchups were more evenly split. Begin. The soundproof barriers rose right after the chief judge's announcement. The MC was already outside the competition stage, and was responsible for narrating today's competition. He quickly got onto a tall structure outside the competition stage, and took a seat 5 meters above the stage. His seat was equipped with a speaker-type soul tool and a telescopic soul tool. The MC could clearly see what the 6 soul engineers were doing on stage. All 6 soul engineers began to move once the announcement was made. This round had no limit as to the number of soul tools that each contestant could create. That also meant that every contestant was allowed to create as many as they wanted within the stipulated time. The choice that each contestant had to make with regards to the volume and power would be up to them. Huo Yuhao's eyes were especially focused and serious today. He had the same faith that he would definitely be victorious, but he also understood that 98 wasn't easy to deal with. The man had a ranked carving knife, and he was also a Class 6 soul engineer, so his standards were comparable to Huo Yuhao's own abilities. The only thing that guy didn't have was Huo Yuhao's spirit eyes, which gave him an advantage. A dash of golden light glowed beneath Huo Yuhao's eyes. He waved his right hand over his forehead, and a green blade charged with life energy appeared in his hands, his life guardian blade. His opponent had a ranked carving knife, so how could Huo Yuhao match up to his opponent if he didn't use his own? This video will end here.